Morning, Andy. Erik Ten Hag is now feeling the weight of being the manager at Manchester United. You just spent an hour with him in a rare interview for United We Stand. What did he has to say to the fans?
He had a lot to say to the fans. First of all, you say an hour. What a privilege to have an hour, because you're a journalist. If I would have got 20 minutes with him, it would have still been worth doing. What I wanted to do was to get Erik talking, to get him relaxed, to get him to open up, not to get him to be how I see him in press conferences, which is defensive, which is afraid of being caught out of questions. So I started asking him about him, and yet I was told beforehand, he just doesn't really talk about anything but football. Okay, then, Erik, tell me about being a football fan. He told me some great stuff about being chased as a 14-year-old, about glass shattering on the bus he was on because the away fans attacked it. He kept saying, I was running for my life, running for my life. It sounded fantastic. Reckons he's been a Man United fan since he's been 5. 5! I said 5. He said, okay, maybe 6. Go on, explain your way out of this one. And he tells a wonderful story about how he was a big 20 fan because he's from close to Enschede, but you were always allowed a second team, and it was usually an English team. And he was United, and his best friend, who's now become a big journalist, was a Liverpool fan. And they would argue United and Liverpool. And he said, we fight. And when he got the job at United, his best friend sent him a copy of a book, the official history of Liverpool Football Club. And Erik said, yeah, I've still not even opened this. So it was good. I could have sold that interview anywhere. I kept it for United We Stand. I think Erik knew who he was talking to. Most of our readers are match-going fans. But to do that, it needs to be supported. I don't like it when these aggregator accounts just steal all my work, because I put a lot of time and effort into getting my exclusive interviews, and it needs to be supported. People need to buy it. So hopefully people will with this issue. We've printed more copies. I'm aware that it's a very delicate time for Erik Ten Hag. I'm aware that fans have doubts, including myself. I watched that game at Newcastle at the weekend thinking, what on earth am I watching? This is awful. After an hour in Istanbul last week, once I dried out a little bit, I'm thinking United cannot possibly lose this. 3-1 up, scoring great goals, playing so well. And then Galatasaray got back into the game. So it's a delicate time for him. You've seen the reaction between him and some of the media. But I tweeted a couple of days ago that I came out of the interview with him feeling that I don't want him to be sacked. And that's my opinion. And I was astonished how many people felt the same way. But equally, if you don't think he's the right man, you're allowed that opinion as well. But I think it's a very difficult job for any human at the moment, especially with the ownership, especially with the players who he's got there. And I don't want to go into a rinse and repeat cycle. I'm often very supportive for the managers. I didn't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should have been sacked. I understand why he was. Losing 5 out of 7, that starts to get untenable. Jose Mourinho wanted to be sacked, so you can't really defend that. But I think managers should get 2 years to do the job. And I think Ten Hag deserves more time.
So he did not come across as a beaten man. You were convinced by his desire to succeed at United?
Yeah, good question. No, he didn't. He wasn't moaning to me. And I've spoke to other managers who say, Andy, off the record, bang, 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 bang. None of that. None of it. He said, I'm going to bring titles to this club. I just need time. I don't want excuses. I don't want excuses about injuries. My job is to find solutions to win football matches. I asked him about Jadon Sancho and the way he dealt with certain things. We didn't have to agree on everything. But no, the interview ends with him being extremely optimistic. And earlier on in it, he says something. He says, you might feel like you're in the clouds at the moment, but I can see the sunlight. You might not be able to see it, but I can see it. And it just took me back to 1990, when most Manchester United fans wanted Alex Ferguson sacked. They don't tell you that now. They say Fergie's great, Fergie's a legend. But I remember being on the street at that time and most United fans wanted him sacked. Would that have been the wise thing to do? No. I'm not saying Erik Ten Hag will be the next Ferguson. I think it's almost impossible now. Competition is much richer, much tougher. You're up against clubs owned by sovereign state funds. Really, really difficult. But I think he did well last season. Not super great, but I think he did well. And he's done badly this season. This season's been really, really disappointing. But as he said, I've got time to turn it around. And he's been missing so many players. He's been unable to put his strongest team out. And when his strongest team played last season, they beat Barcelona, 2 great games. They beat Manchester City. They won the League Cup final. He's got to get back to that point because I think United fans were completely having him then.
There's been reports about Ten Hag losing the dressing room, and this week several journalists were banned by the club. What do you make of that, Andy?
I'm a journalist, so I don't ever think it's a good thing to ban journalists. But I'm aware that most United fans think this decision is the correct one. Vast majority do. I'll give you an example. The club want journalists to check stories out with them. So earlier on this year, a good source came to me and said, Andy, I'm told that this person is leaving. And it's come from a family member. Okay. So I went to the club, said, I'm hearing this person is leaving. Okay, we've not heard that, but it might be true. We'll check it out. So they went to people, including Erik Ten Hag, and they came back and said, I'm sorry, we know absolutely nothing about this. So my story, which I put to the club, was incorrect. It's a little bit embarrassing. But I didn't tell anyone. I didn't write the story because I checked the story out, because that's what a journalist is supposed to do. If journalists don't check things out and check the facts out, then you end up with the type of news my mother consumes on Facebook, where her friends are just spreading rumours and no one's checking anywhere. And it's really dangerous for society. The club feel journalists should come to them and check stories out. But this doesn't happen in football, especially with all the transfer rubbish. You see speculative stories written all the time where agents want their players linked to Man United. So do people go to Man United and say, yeah, I'm hearing that this player is being linked? The club are never going to confirm that that's true. Equally, independent journalism is really, really important. So last week you had a story where some people had eaten chicken at Old Trafford and fallen ill afterwards. The club would never have put that story out. So it's for independent journalists to find out the stories and to check them out. And fans come to me and saying, what are you hearing? Well, do you want me to tell you what I'm hearing from leaks? You know, you can't have it both ways. You can't say there can be no leaks and then say, what are you hearing? What's going on the inside? Well, how on earth do you think I find out what's going on the inside? So when I come to Norway and I do tell stories with lots of insight, it's because people are leaking the information to me. It happens at every football club in the world. I think the club just feel that some of the stuff that's gone out there, especially around the manager, and I'm not on about this week, I'm on about a few weeks ago, where they said that the club were actively looking at replacing Ten Hag. They feel that he's factually incorrect and they're trying to protect themselves. Their view would be, if we create a siege mentality, the fans are going to be with us before they're with any journalists. And that's what's happening. And it's a tricky situation.
Thank you so much for your insight, Andy, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. All the best to everybody in the Scandinavian Supporters Club.